Okay, the famous podcast 5, if we follow the principles through inner knowledge. And I want to put that onto the understanding of meditation and mindfulness. Mindfulness, as you know, is the ability to kind of always have the observer switched on in every situation in life. So that means that you are always living your life, being present in whatever's going on, running both emotions and thoughts and everything, but at the same time you're observing yourself. You are developing a frontal lobe oversight, not to diminish yourself or restrict yourself, but to the purpose of monitoring and ensuring that whatever is going on, to the best of your abilities in this situation, will have some sort of transformational outcome. Because I'm not going to say for the highest good of the many, because we can't always do that. Sometimes if we have trigger points that goes into childhood wounds, we are not these stoic, I got this kind of observer. Then we are immersed into whatever going on. I'm still having points where I can get triggered so heavy that I can observe myself raging, crying, going into a full tantrum, or whatever it is that is necessary to surface. Doing a catharsis process where my body and my emotion, and I have no thoughts whatsoever, I'm literally just immersed into whatever needs to be released. And at the same time, I'm having the observer. I'm observing, monitoring, and make sure that the catharsis process, the transformative process, doesn't run to where I don't want it to. And that has taken me a lot of practice. Sometimes it did run to places where I didn't want it to go. And then the outcome and the transformation itself was literally of no use, because it just got too much imprinting, too much distortion. And then it was more a cleanup process afterwards than actually a beneficial process. But we have to go through these stages. As a psychotherapist, that's my standpoint. Others will deviate from that standpoint. Others will say that's not necessary. And there's a difference between males and females, because females are more emotional, most often. I'm not saying always, but we have the hormonal cycles. Our body and psyche are intertwined in a different way. We are literally experiencing the world at large from a different perspective, whether it is institutional or it's programs or whatever it is. It's a fact that men and females are emotionally experiencing things differently. Their thought processes around emotions are, whether it's due to programs or it's parental or whatever it is. The fact is, it is. And we must acknowledge that. We can't scoop around and say it doesn't exist. Because it does, as you know from the path of liberation, where I talked about the differences. There is a neurological difference between males and females. There are a bodily chemistry that is different in males and females. There is a softness and receptivity and a higher degree of oxytocin in females naturally, which is not to the same degree in males. And that's all biology. It's about the taking care of the offspring, the joint fields, and all the things that are in a female, especially if she has given birth. And I can only express my worldview and how I perceive it because I have given birth. So for me, that's my reality compared to other females that might not have given birth and they don't experience it the same way. And I can say that for a certainty because in my family, I have a little bit out there. I'm trying to avoid mentioning names and by that directing my consciousness, but I grew up with a female that didn't give birth and I saw the differences. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but there are differences for those who have given birth and those who have not given birth. Those who are parents and those who are not parents. There are parents, they are forced to learn to think about their offspring before themselves. People who have not given birth or have offspring, they put themselves in the center. And it's all perfect. I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's just different ways of having perception and awareness and how we perceive reality. And that must be taken into our meditation practice as well and our mindfulness practice. So our mindfulness practice is different due to the conditioning we have had throughout life and when we begin the mindfulness practice, what our experiences are, what our nodes of focus are in life. Are we a scientist? Are we a caretaker? Are we a psychotherapist like I am that works with that level of understanding? Or where do we come from? So that's the first step when we talk about mindfulness. Our brain will naturally discern within the patterns that it has been trained within. That's just how it works. Like we perceive reality in a specific way. When we do mindfulness practice, we will also be focused on specific things. And my focus has always been transformational processes and learning to deal with my emotionality, as at the same time also finding the balance point into where that feels balanced and okay for me, due to my upbringing and my family dynamics and what I experienced there. Then my mindfulness practice is, of course, tailored around that framework of how I perceive reality and how emotions were perceived and why it matters to me to figure out what emotions are, and on and on. The differences I saw between my dad and my mom and how they kind of didn't understand each other. He came from one place, she came from another. We could also use astrology as in kind of two completely different star signs that were not really good working together if you're asking an astrologer today. And we can find 1,000 different narratives that explains. The one that resonates with us will be the one that we will find as the foundation of why that is. So the mindfulness is not just about bodily functions or emotional transformative processes. It's also an oversight in a way of all of the narratives and the cognitive stories that are constantly in our brain that create some kind of storytelling about ourself, other, and reality and where we fit in. The meaning and purpose existential narratives that explains to us why that is. We could also call it ontological descriptive narratives that explains our beingness in the world and why it is that way. And if we can step back and learn to monitor that and really see, wow, my brain is coming up with these fantastic stories and narratives, and begin to investigate where they come from and what they tie into, and what that leads to is called a cognitive scheme. Now does that affect our emotionality? That's how I would like to use mindfulness, not just as in observing my bodily functions as now I'm breathing, or this is who I am right now, or whatever, this is a situation, or whatever we perceive. We always draw back and understand the observer in a way is this neutral oversight that monitors the entire system. It's not ego-based, it's not tied into a childhood trauma, but it works through the scaffold that we have to begin with until we train it to think outside our narratives and outside our cognitive scheme and outside the patterns that we have created, be it emotional patterns that get triggered, or it is cognitive narratives that we have produced to make sense and meaning of things so that we could level out our emotions. As children, we often, when we had an emotional response to something we didn't understand, if we had a grown-up that could tell us what it was, we would find comfort in that, and we could get regulated because we had a narrative that explained that. If we had an emotional reaction, we didn't have a grown-up that would tell us that, then perhaps as a child, we would use the child mind to create a narrative that would calm us down, but that doesn't mean the narrative is accurate. It just means that calmed us down, or create a narrative that spooked us and made us even more frightened. So the narratives can level out and balance our emotional reactions, or it can make it worse. That's part of the observer as well, to register in mindfulness all of these cognitive processes. So how do we get that mindfulness practice nailed down? And that's where meditation comes in as the first step. Again, in meditation, it depends on what is your purpose with meditation. And I'm not the textbook girl that has read so-and-so and by that want to align myself with a way that a specific person have done it some 3,500 years ago or 2,500 years ago, named Siddhartha, and what he came up with, because I know it predates him. The gurus did it before him. People have done it long before then. And I can look into what did the Brahmins bring with them from Atlantis and what was the purpose of that and what has practitioners done. And I can look into the collective and the code streams, and I can all sorts of ways. And all of that is just different interpretation of what it means to meditate. And that's why I'd like to call it focused awareness instead. And skip that word altogether because we get confused with that. And in a way, mindfulness, skip that word and say it's a kind of focused awareness in everyday life where we are monitoring our entire system, the biology, the emotional field, the mental field, the higher levels and everything that goes around us, which bridges us into multidimensional awareness, where we literally learn to see things in each and one of their sections, in the different dimensional energy bands, and put them into boxes and understand them as a whole, but also understand them as different boxes where we can either deconstruct to investigate the tree in the forest, or we can look at the forest itself and see it as an entire system. That's mindfulness. That's the focused awareness in multidimensionality, where we can both expand into perceiving the system at large as a big unified field of thousands of droplets of different types of energies, or focused on one droplet or one sphere or one section of that reality, and then go into details with that. That's where mindfulness bridges from just being the observer into be an active tool in our investigation of reality, self, and others. Meditation-focused awareness for me, and I can only say for me, how have I used it? And you heard me talk about that before in other places. For me, I tapped naturally into it as a child. And was it because I practiced in a previous life? Most likely. We have heard stories from other practitioners that if they have done it in a previous life, then it's easier for them to pick it back up. So it's already coded, it's already part of a template, it's already there, compared to people who've never done it before and suddenly have to learn that practice. Then it takes more, and then it's a little bit more difficult. Or if there's a blockage around the practice, or if there are a seal that perhaps prevent us from doing that, and on and on. There could be 1,000 explanations of why it is a different experience from each person who's doing it. And we must keep that in mind, but don't use it as a pillow and get lazy and complacent and say, whatever, I haven't done it before, so therefore it's difficult for me. And by that, it can take me years before I get into the practice. You have to find in between being patient and kind towards yourself, but also in a way a little bit rigorous in the way that you keep a daily practice, that you practice it as a minimum 10 minutes per day. You don't have to do it a full hour. Nobody can do that. You have to practice it. Like if you want to learn to run, or if you are doing exercise, or you want to learn something new as a grown-up, you have to take the time to it. It doesn't come naturally. You just don't sit down and you can sit for an hour and then you're full in meditation. Of course, everything we learn as grown-up is a type of practice that must be unfolded. It's a new habit, so we must create the new habit. And while we're creating the new habit, the old habit of not doing it is often stronger than the habit of doing what we want to do when we set our mind to change something, to unfold a new pattern, unfold a new practice that will then become a habit and become part of every day. So in that, it's important that we understand, why do I want to meditate or have focused awareness in a silent practice where my focused awareness is either the walking meditation as we began with, or the focused awareness while walking, or you want to do focused awareness while sitting. And there's differences in that. My best advice is actually to either you go for a walk first, or you do your 10-15 minutes exercise, or whatever it is that you're doing, so your body gets the excess energy out already, and then you sit afterwards. And there are many different If you do yoga, you end up also with sitting with that focused awareness on your bodily functions and relaxing and your breath, as well as when you do yoga at the same time, you're actually using this focused awareness while you're doing yoga. We know the effect is so much larger when the mind and the body works together. Instead of being two disrupted parts of you, where the brain has its own life and does all of its own universal stuff, and the body is left literally just being a head on a stick, or a head on wheels, or a head on a body where the body is just a servant of the brain or the mind, and it runs its own show up there. And overhearing, not listening to the body, not listening to the body's needs, not listening to when there's hunger or when you need to go to the bathroom or whatever, is constantly overriding the bodily needs. So the body learns, nobody's listening to me. For me, meditation or focused awareness, whether it's lying down or sitting or walking, has always been with the purpose of integration and healing. Because that's how it works for me. As a kid, when I come home from school, I would be so tired out. My head was all over the place and I was overloaded. And I didn't know what to do with all of that overload. So I was literally stressed out. So what I would do is I would lie on the couch and look out the window and look at the sky. And then I would see all of these clouds and I would see the images of the clouds. But eventually I just learned to follow the drift of the clouds and no longer make images and just zone out and relax without falling asleep. Because falling asleep did not take away the unrest. On the contrary, it just transferred right into dreams and I would wake up feeling even more exhausted. So I learned that I have to learn to relax without sleeping, to get my neural network calmed down, because the neural network is always on to something. It's like our brains are wired to constantly function. And in a way, it's logical because it's the software that drives the entire body. But that doesn't mean that the gray matter has to be involved. We can push the bodily function into not just the limbic system, but even further down just to the instinctual level where we're just body. A body that's breathing, present, there, existing. And that's, for me, what focused awareness in the sitting position is, unless, of course, I choose to do energy work or calm myself down, do a double hand position, or explore reality, use my breath to elevate the energies and amplify a certain section of my body, whatever it is. But normally when I do healing, I lie down. When I sit up, I know now's the time with the mind. It's like coded into that position itself. Lie down, psychosomatic. Sit up, mental somatic. And that means cognitive somatic. The neural network itself, the spine, the central nervous system, and the body itself, to create coherence, to create integration, to switch off all of the processes in the gray matter so that the body gets room to be there and give its say, so that we integrate our awareness with the body. So it becomes body awareness, focused body awareness. And with that, having kindness and literally going in to allow the body just to be there for 2 seconds, to be listened to give say that I'm here. So if we're living a life where we're literally just head on wheels and we're overlooking the body sensation, then of course, the moment we try to sit down in meditation and silent observation, the body will take its chance to yell at us, to make, this is unpleasant, I don't want to do this. And then we can hear the body. It's literally, it pops up, there's room for me now. So it becomes rebellious. It wants to be heard. It wants to be acknowledged. So it does all the things that makes people say, I can't sit in meditation, it's impossible. Or the brain will say, no, I'm not letting go of my control here. The body will not have a say, so I'll keep my mind processes if that's the habit and if that's what makes you feel comfortable, because sometimes people don't want to feel their body. Because if they feel their body, they feel the physical pain. But not only that, perhaps also emotions. And for some, that feels very, very dangerous. And that can be an obstacle in meditation or focused awareness too. Because then suddenly we will feel our body. we will feel the state of our organic vessel and the condition it's in. We will feel the state of our emotional field and the state that it's in. And we will sense, understand the mind field and the state that it's in. When we focus and calm and breathe and relax, all of the things that is imbalanced will then begin to pop up. And for some, that's very frightening, especially if, as a child, there has not been good tools to handle overwhelming situations, or there's not been room for your emotions, or whatever you had to join in with. The learning lesson has been that there's no room for you, there's no room for your emotions, there's no room for anything, so everything's just shut down. So of course, if you then sit in meditation and go in and say, now I want to listen, there are the psychological blockages you have to go through first. The defense mechanisms that have protected you will get in the way. It's not just about sitting there observing your breath. It's about becoming a full system that is now interacting, having its say, speaking its voice, and being invited as a collective, as a system, to work in a balanced way. So everybody who has not been heard for a long time, they will take the opportune moment you sit down and begin to monitor your breath as an opportune moment to be heard. And that's why many people, in my opinion, an explanation for, it's not saying that is why and that's the truth, but a possible explanation for why people have difficulties when they want to begin the practice of focused awareness in a sitting position. When I sit in a sitting position, and I have done, whether it's a little bit of exercise or going for a walk, I have done what my body needs, so it's ready to relax a little bit. It's been fulfilled, so I can do my breath, and then I can shut my brain off because I already practiced that when I was out walking or when I exercised. When I exercise, I don't think other than just about the exercise, similar when you do yoga. And since it is a very natural thing for me, then of course me trying to teach you how to do it will become a little bit, how do I actually teach that? Because for me, due to earlier practice, when I began, after many years of being a normal human, so to speak, and I began picking up the meditation, the moment I sat down, it came naturally. This is what you need to do. And I had the insights and the information. I was literally drawing on a practice of a previous lifetime. For others who begin anew, then the best example I can do and give is, okay, listen to other practitioners. Study some of the material that is around this. But know that just because one person says so doesn't mean that that's the truth. Understand that each person will investigate the focused awareness, whether it's in sitting or walking or lying, and experience it in a different way. We are not all like the Buddha. The Buddha was a person who lived so-and-so back in the day, 500 year BC, in a different culture, and he had his practice. The mythology tells us about that, all the things he had to go through before he got to the point where he understood what his practice was. And it predates him. So we just keep that in mind and saying, okay, this is apparently something that humans can do. This is a part of the human condition, like cats can lie in the sun and relax, or dogs can sit in front of the window and just look out and observe whatever's going on. We have that ability too, to just be the observer, to just be a body, to just be something that breathes, that's something that's just existing, something that is just present in the now, that is not focused on a lot of mental processes, trying to value them and put them in system and figure out what it is and find explanations and all of these things. That's just part of focused awareness, is literally just to take that, put it somewhere else and say, I'll return to you later on. All of these things, they have a place. They have a purpose. And when it's fruitful, I will use that method. When it's not fruitful, I will put it away. And in between these states, we just become. We're just a being that's here, physical, with a lot of processes, that's breathing, and shut off the brain so that the brain is just taking care of the body, and give it a kind of a reprieve. It becomes a refuge of healing and integration. When we do that, neuroscience tells us that when we just let our thoughts wander, it's a kind of pruning of the brain that doesn't involve dream time. When we focus on our breath, we calm ourselves down and regulate our central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. When we are doing practices of focused awareness and kindness towards our own body, we are giving it a healing energy that creates harmony and pushes things to the surface that must be transformed. We are acknowledging ourselves as vibrational, energetic beings when we are having our focused awareness. And that's, for me, the first important part of the focused awareness, and why it's important for us to learn this practice. It's not about meditation and mindfulness. It's about focused awareness as a tool to become a more full human that is literally taking care of ourselves to the best way that's human possible. It's like it's built into our system that the moment we begin to exercise focused awareness, we allow for a healing process to unfold. We allow for an integration process to take place. We allow for transformation to become part of everyday life. We allow for fuller expression of who and what we are. And we allow for a state of existence where everything is in a kind of a coherence, which is not just samadhi or the feeling of bliss or something that feels nice or tingling sensations. For me, the best place where I can get is where it's just, everything's just calm. Everything is just existence. Whether it is me or my surroundings or whatever, is where you reach that, where the boundaries between you and their surroundings literally just cease to exist. Not that you are sensing into everything that's around you. I can do that, but that's not the point. The point is just to be like the dog sitting in front of a window looking out, or the cat in the sun, or the light specks in the creek, or just the existence of matter and energy, and me just being part of that existence without valuing, judging, thinking, processing, observing, all of these things, just putting that aside for a little while. And that for me is super healing. It creates a natural calm in my body and in my presence. If I have too much going on, if I got too many emotional challenges, and when things are running too quickly, I lose this completely. Then I have to get back into that practice. I have to slow down. I have to create a situation where everything is slowed down. Not just because I'm taking my 10 minutes meditation, that's not enough, but because I expand it into a way of life. And that's one of the reasons why I take it so, for me it's very, very precious to have time to do things in my own rhythm, to have time to unfold what I need in that moment, to have my own rhythm throughout the day. And it doesn't mean that I'm not getting work done. On the contrary, I'm very efficient when I do work, because the other moments in my everyday, I relax, I integrate, I balance, I heal, I focus on just being existence, just being an existence in itself, and not having to have a purpose or a goal or go this and that, whatever, It's just life. I exist. Life exists. Things are. And in that moment, I'm not valuing anything. And that gives me reprieve. That gives that moment where I know I can return to the thought processes. I can return to the emotional turmoil. I can return to all the things that are needed. But I give this in kind of walking in and out of it. So it's not always going on, but the ability that I have got from the focused awareness practice throughout my life is the ability to step out and observe when I have lost it, and then find my way back to it and find that balance point again. So for me, that's where I want to go with this podcast 5. And I know there's a little bit more information, so I most likely will make another podcast, because there's something there that sits and wants to be expressed. But today, what I want to put here with Principle 5 and True Inner Knowledge, that goes for mindfulness as well as for meditation. Find the words that resonates with you, so that when you do the practice, it's not about comparing to what others have done. It's not about comparing to what studies of it has said. It's about finding your natural level of existence, where you just become a being that exists without all sorts of narratives, a being that is breathing, healing, and integrating, and just being foundational in that moment in balance, and just feel how that heals you. So that's for me what the practice is. It's about integration and healing. It's not about proving mind over matter, or not listening to my body, or keeping it in a position. And if there's pain, then I'll sit with the pain and explore the pain. No, for me it's this, okay, body, this is about us learning to coexist as a unity in balance and in harmony, creating coherence pattern. And how we do that? So meditation is not about a specific position, it's about what's comfortable. Then it's about keeping your spine and your muscle structure trained to have that upright position, which eventually will give you a better condition altogether. It's training your core muscles. So if you've got issues with that, train the plank and other stuff that gives you core muscles, so you can sit upright. Why is it important to sit upright? Because it's all due to the central nervous system and the spine itself, and some of the original currents that goes with the meridian system, which of course goes between the brain and the body and the root chakra and the heart vortex and the brain vortex, that can be aligned in meditation. And all of this is part of the practice as it unfolds later on. But the first step is this ability to sit and to be okay with sitting, and acknowledging and kindly monitoring, breathing, feeling the healing energy, and make your body understand this is where you and I are one. This is where you and I are sensing each other in focused awareness as a team. And that's what I would like to say in this one. So until the next final podcast, take care and see if you can put in 10 minutes a day where this state of mind, integration, healing, coherence can be something you can experience as an opportune moment for full integration and learning simply just to exist. And that is also okay. And that's part of the human condition as well. Okay, bye for now.